What's going on, Weekend Hangover Nation? I'm your boy Surf, and I'm chilling out with the homie Preach. What's going on, Preach?
What is going on, crew?
What's going on? All right, today we're gonna be talking about fantasy draft. This is a segment that's new to 2019. Me and Preach are old school fantasy players. We've been playing for most of our adult lives, and we're just gonna drop a little knowledge on y'all. So, Preach, do you want to start out?
Sure. I'll take it this time. One of my draft sleepers. Now, he may not truly be a draft sleeper when the season starts because I feel that he's gonna shoot up draft boards. I feel that people are kind of doubting what he is right now just because of his seasons past and everything. He didn't have tremendous numbers with the Saints, but it's Mark Ingram. He is the sole ball carrier out there in Baltimore. And Baltimore loves to tote the rock. They're an old school team, like I am, They love the running back. And Ingram can catch out of the backfield. And he's a touchdown scoring machine. I think he's a tremendous fit there.
Nice. Okay. So a little, are we seeing shades of Ray Rice? Is this like Ray Rice 2.0? Or more talented?
I think he's more talented than Ray.
Okay.
But he's also, at this point, he's also older than Ray. Than when Ray was getting going.
True. What I like about Ingram is over the last few years we've really gotten to see what he can do with his hands. So I think he's going to be a big time option for Lamar Jackson checking down in that offense.
Exactly. Absolutely. I think he has everything going for him.
Okay, so like Ingram moving forward. I can dig it, man. I can definitely dig it. All right, I'm going with Courtland Sutton as my number one draft sleeper here. Now, Courtland Sutton was a second-round pick last year by the Denver Broncos. He did enough in his limited time playing to force Demaryius Thomas out and make that trade very easy to move him to the Texans. He had 42 catches, 704 yards, and 4 touchdowns last year with a 16.8 yards per catch. Big play ability, my friend. He's going to be the number one option on the outside. I know Emmanuel Sanders out there, but Emmanuel Sanders certainly is not 6'4". So I think with Flacco's big arm, I think with a bigger sample size, I think he has a chance to move into that wide receiver 2 category. I think he has a chance to really take big steps. So, Preach, who's your number 2 option here, buddy? Who's your number 2 fantasy sleeper?
Number 2 is Derek Carr. He is way, way down there on boards. Way down there.
You always like the Carrs, man.
First off, Carr didn't have a bad season last year. He almost had 4,100 yards. Now, the touchdowns, the interceptions wasn't as nice. It was 19 and 10. But what weapons did he really have out there?
Yeah, outside of Jared Cook, right?
Now he's got one of the best weapons in Antonio Brown. And I also love the running back that they picked up in Jacobs. I think it's going to help him out tremendously. They built that lineup. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think those touchdowns, I think the yards are going to jump up slightly. He'll probably end up with like 42, 43. But I think those touchdowns skyrocket. I say he throws somewhere between 30, 35 touchdowns.
Nice. Okay. That's elite territory right there. You're talking Aaron Rodgers company.
I think he has a huge year. I really do.
Nice. Okay, I can dig it, man. I also like the Tyrell Williams pickup that they did. I think that should give him some over the top. That should be real nice, man.
I mean, you went from no weapons besides Jared Cook. I don't want to take nothing away from him. But you went from basically one weapon to now 3.
Yeah. Yeah, and Antonio Brown's on a whole different fantasy level of weapon than Jared Cook. I understand 2 different positions, but definitely, man. Absolutely, Preach. Absolutely, man. I like it. I definitely like it, man. So Derek Carr, baby. All right, my number 2 fantasy sleeper in this podcast is Zay Jones. It's another receiver, but he's another number 1 option out there in Buffalo. He had 56 catches, 652 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I'm definitely a Zay Jones fan, man. His numbers jump so dramatically from year 1 to year 2 that I expect another big jump, man. 7 touchdowns is already pretty quality when it comes to a fantasy receiver. So
absolutely.
I honestly think the additions of Brown and Beasley are only going to help him. I think they won't be able to queue as much on him. I think as you saw, his numbers once he got comfortable with Allen last year only increased. He torched the Dolphins twice for 4 touchdowns in 2 games. So
I think that was because Allen got comfortable. Once he got comfortable behind that line, I think that's when it really started to shine.
And I think that line only got better with the addition of Ford. They grabbed a couple backup pieces from your skins with Nitschke and that guard. But I think with Allen getting more comfortable, like you said, and Allen making the jump, I think his number one option will be Zay Jones out there, even with the John Brown pickup. I think they do 2 different things. So I think he has a chance to have himself another wide receiver 2 type of season there. I think you pick him up pretty late as well. So Preach, who's your number 3?
Number 3 is O.J. Howard. Now, I understand he's still at this point the backup to Brate, but I think his numbers last year, even with him getting hurt, he only played 11 games, still outshined Brate. They had pretty much around the same amount of catches with 34. But O.J. Howard had 34 catches with 565 yards and 5 touchdowns. That is 16.6 yards a catch. That's pretty decent for a big tight end. He's fast.
That's pretty remarkable for a big tight end. Definitely.
And truthfully, his season only got better when Winston came in. Winston, I guess, likes throwing to those targets, those big tight ends. Winston will be the starter this year. There will be no interchange with Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
I think he's going to have a huge season.
Do you think Do you think Winston with Arians, who he's clearly comfortable with, they're clearly boys from back in the day? So do you think Winston and Arians are some kind of new magic's gonna be instilled into Winston's confidence as well?
I think this is the reason why I went O.J. Howard, is because I think it's going to be a lot of dinks and dunks. I don't think it's going to be a lot of over the top, just try to get it to Mike Evans. That's all you really saw last year, was just big play or nothing ability.
Yeah.
That is also because they don't have a running back.
Okay.
But I think if you dink and dunk it a little bit more, O.J. Howard here, dump off to the running backs, screens, all this kind of stuff, and then go over the top to Mike Evans, I think that's what Arians is trying to go with, which was what he did with Arizona.
Nice. I can dig it. I'm not a Ronald Jones fan. I think he was a bust last year, and I think he's going to continue being a bust moving forward, so I don't think they're going to have a running back either moving forward. So, all right, Preach. I'm going to move on to my third pick, which is Darius Geis, man. I know you hate when I announce Redskins coming forward, but I'm a huge Geis fan. I'm a huge believer. I wanted my Philadelphia Eagles to draft him last year, but man, I think he comes on strong. I heard he's recovering very well off of that ACL tear. And
yeah, I've seen some little workouts where he looks like he should be back.
Yeah, I honestly, on paper, actually in film, I had him higher than I had Saquon last year. I thought he was clearly the best running back going into last year's draft. There are a couple holes in his game. He didn't do a lot of receiving even when he was behind Fournette. I think his most in a season in college was only 18. So I'm not really sure how his hands are going to be in the passing game. But man, if you can get it to him in space, I mean, he's got the ability to see a hole and get through it. He's got that elite vision, and he's got the elite quickness to get there. So I think he's going to have a massive season if he stays healthy. So,
but now a question I got for you is, because this is dealing with fantasy football, not actual football, do you think he still could put up fantasy numbers with AP there?
Okay, old man Peterson, as I'm gonna start referring to him on this podcast, I think AP early on in the season, I think they try to work Geis in very slowly, but I think talent will shine through, and I think the young man's gonna just be too good for you guys to hold back any restraints. I can see going forward in the season him seeing as many as 25 touches a game in the receiving game and in the running game, which in today's modern day of football, I think that's a lot for running back.
So if you're saying if Geis doesn't have an outstanding, first 2 games, still hang on to him, he's going to take over?
Hang on to him, man. Hang on to him. Grab him and stash him, man. Put him behind a couple guys and then let him shine probably week 5 going forward. And if you're worried about Chris Thompson, he always gets hurt, man. Like, and he'll show up early and then he'll be gone. So,
him and Jordan Reed are guarantees to get hurt.
Definitely, man, definitely. Okay, Preach, who's your number 4?
My number 4 is an old Redskin, Jamison Crowder. Now, he doesn't put out outstanding numbers, but this is a really, really, really late receiver. Someone that probably in most leagues won't even go drafted. This is more for the leagues that are drafting 10, 12 teams. Last year wasn't a tremendous season. He only played 9 games with 29 receptions for 388 with 2 touchdowns. But we also aren't a tremendous team either at this point in time. Because the year before he had 66 for 790 with 3 touchdowns. But with the Jets, I think he's going to be... There's no one that's going to guard him. You know, you have so much weapons, so much other talents out there. He's going to be open. He's going to be just pure slot, dink and dunk to him, let him use his speed to go over the top. I think he will possibly be the number 1 target there. Outside of Le'Veon, because I think Le'Veon's going to have an outstanding season. But I think as a late sleeper, I think he can put up pretty decent numbers. He'll probably be somewhere around top 15, top 20 receivers when it's all said and done.
It's not bad, man. We saw Jarvis Landry have... I know he's not a big yards per catch type of guy, but we saw him have success under Gase in 2016 and 17. Like, we saw him have big career in that slot with Gase. So I think Crowder matches up pretty well there. I think Gase knows how to use a slot receiver, so I can see that working
pretty well with Landry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so my next guy is Dallas Goedert. I know I'm a homer. I always have to mention an Eagle every time I'm in here. I can't help myself. Philly, baby. But anyways, so Goddard, 6'5", 256.
Worst
he
thing
had
that ever
33
happened
catches.
was you guys winning those rings, though.
Yeah. Oh no. As a Skins fan, yeah, I bet. But as an Eagles fan, that was the greatest thing that ever happened. Like, yeah. But anyways, Goddard had 33 catches, 334 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Most of those came as the year progressed. And I think I hate to say we, but when Philly was moving into the playoffs, I think Goddard really showed what he could do against the Bears. I know he only had 2 catches, but he had a touchdown in that game. And he just looks like a physical monster out there. I mean, you can't single up on with a linebacker against him. And I think the fact that Philly only added talent to that offense, I think that's only going to make things better for him. They already announced that Peterson said he's going to try to work as much 2 tight end sets in, at 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets in as possible. So if he sees an increase in playing time, I think his stats double next year. And I think Goddard ends up being a touchdown machine.
Now, the only worry that I have about that is if Wentz stays healthy, Wentz only throws to one person, and that's Ertz.
Okay, to be fair to Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that last year going into the season, Alshon Jeffries missed the first 2 games. You were expecting Mike Wallace over the top to take that Torrey Smith role, and Mike Wallace only played the first game and was out for a year. So, and you were also expecting Hollins to take a step, and he never played a single snap. So I think missing that deep threat hurt Carson Wentz a lot, and I think Carson Wentz relied a lot on Ertz underneath. So I think this year going forward with Deshaun, I think he's going to let it rip a little bit more with Alshon. I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance for some options underneath with other people besides Ertz. So, all right, Preach. Who's your 5th option, buddy?
5th option, man, I hate to go with this, but he's even further than Derek Carr, is Kirk Cousins, which...
Oh, wow.
I hate Cousins. I absolutely do, but in a fantasy world, he puts up fantasy numbers. And the fact that you're going below somebody who I already thought was a sleeper in Derek Carr on most people's boards, you're going lower than him. And he still put up 30-some touchdowns. I believe he also had 42,000 yards.
Yeah, he had 30 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions, and he had a 70% completion percentage, was the most in his career. So,
and he didn't lose any weapons. He doesn't throw to the running back, so I keep adding running backs. It doesn't matter to him. He added an extra tight end during the draft. He's got 4 tremendous targets. Like, I don't understand why people aren't loving him on draft boards.
Okay, can we say this about Cousins though? If it comes down to Week 17, you're in your fantasy Super Bowl, and Cousins needs to win that Week 17 game, you sit Cousins and you play whoever the hell you have behind him. Doesn't matter who it is.
Yes. Now, with the Cousins thing, I'm going to say this. Cousins will survive you through the regular season, okay? When it comes down to your playoff time or towards when the game matters for him, when they're trying to get into the playoffs, take him out. He is not clutch, all right? If the game is meant for him to come out there and win it on his own, he will not do it for you. Take him out. Put whoever you have in. So you are going to need a backup. Doesn't have to be a great backup. Just a decent one.
Okay, my final fantasy sleeper of this podcast is James Washington. I mean, we're talking deep sleeper here. He's going to go undrafted in every single league unless he tears it up in preseason. But James Washington is a second-year receiver out of Oklahoma State. He's 5'11", 214. He's built like a running back. And he plays for the Steelers. And with Antonio Brown moving on, Steelers have a gaping hole, which they tried to address by picking up Moncrief, but Moncrief is on his third team in the last 4 seasons. And frankly, I don't believe in Moncrief. That's just me. It's a personal bias that I might have against the man that goes back to Ole Miss days, but I'm just not a huge Moncrief guy. But if the only thing standing in his way is Smith-Schuster and Eli Rogers for playing time and Moncrief, if James Washington can play, and clearly the Steelers thought he could, or they wouldn't have drafted him in the second round, I think he's got a chance to really get some targets going. He didn't do a ton his rookie year. He had 16 catches for 217 yards and a touchdown. But honestly, I think if you're looking for a deep sleeper that you could draft and stash or even pick up as an undrafted free agent after going into week 1, I think James Washington's the guy. So.
Yeah, and I mean, those targets have to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's 168 targets that need to go somewhere else. And Jesse James is gone now. Steelers didn't address the tight end position, so again, that's just even more targets that Big Ben's going to have to pass around, man. So.
Yeah, Juju can't take everything.
Exactly. So, all right, guys, this has been another Weekend Hangover production. Preach, you want to say anything to the crew?
I'll catch you on the next video.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this right here at the end. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and support our podcast. It's another Weekend Hangover production, so I'll catch you guys later. And always, you got to regulate.